The last time I posted, I had only just learned what I had to do to prepare for my stand against the beings which even the angels fear. The old ones, eldritch horrors whose true names and age predate the angels, and perhaps the gods. To sort out a misnomer, as she was quite a bit upset at my mislabeling her, allow me to clarify that Colcifer is indeed a fallen angel, and not a demon or a devil. She has a vast and unsettling array of abilities and habits, illusions and shapeshifting being among them. Some of you will be relieved to know that she and I have since discussed the terms of our deal. It seems fair enough, and I was as thorough as possible. She claims to have never intended harm before materializing to me, but had intended to merely amplify fear and caution in my family. And she's been doing so for a very long time, and is claiming to have done so in order to keep us away from less benevolent supernatural creatures. There are, of course, rules to when and how she is allowed to assist me. 1. If mortals intend to kill me, whether by order of a supernatural being or not, at most she can warn me. 2. If another fallen angel tries to directly harm me, she may opt to assist me. 3. She is not obligated to protect me from deities of any kind. 4. She is not to be seen in physical form by the light of day, while in direct sunlight. 5. She may not assist me in view of other mortals if they haven't already seen the supernatural before. The rules and guidelines go on a bit, but those are the most pertinent ones. Now, some of you thought my story ended with the beginning of my journey. I don't blame you. I know life is like that sometimes. Something seems to just be getting started, and then bam, it's over. Here's where we left off. Colcifer and I were hard at work making my first grimoire, and discussing the precise geometry involved in ritual-based spells. We used simple lambskin for the covers, and silk string intertwined with copper threads. A simple infusion of my blood, and a few hairs from my head were placed under the front and back covers. This was to ensure that I would never lose the book for long. It was nearly finished, and all that was missing was a bit of glue, and all the spells. Don't worry, John, it's getting late, and she paused. I was getting anxious, and I won't lie, a bit excited to start learning actual spells. Oh, Sandy's at the door. Colcifer, I whispered hurriedly. Take a hike for now. We'll start again first thing tomorrow morning, after Sandy leaves for work. With a wink and a flash of light, Colcifer was gone. I placed the grimoire in an empty slot on the bookshelf in my living room, and I picked up my phone. I could hear Sandy's keys jiggling as she pulled them from her purse. I grabbed my headphones, unlocked my phone, and clicked the YouTube icon. The lock clicked open on the door, and the handle was turning, just as I had loaded a Creepypasta story narrated by my favorite narrator, Mr. Creeps. That wasn't always his name, or so I've heard. And in walked Sandy, my beautiful fiancée. Her straight black hair, professionally sexy teacher's uniform smudged with chalk dust in places, as usual. No nonsense makeup and a bright, if not somewhat tired smile. Hey babe, I missed you today, she said as she took her shoes off at the door. Did you remember to do the dishes? Indeed, I had not remembered. Is it the maid coming by tomorrow? I feigned ignorance. It's Sunday, the maid comes on Tuesdays and Fridays. Today is... I changed the subject. How was work today? And say, what did the school have you doing up there on a Sunday anyway? Oh, I didn't tell you. It was an all-day workshop seminar. It was alright, but I would rather have been home with you, so I could remind you to do the dishes. She got me with that one. So, honey, are you tired from work to do what we talked about yesterday? She crossed her arms. Can't remember when the maid comes to clean the house, but of course, you remember about that. I smiled and winked. God, Colsifer's starting to be a bad influence on me. Tonight's not the night, John. The workshop was a handful. Maybe tomorrow after you get back from school. She had already started heading upstairs to get ready for bed. Oh, hey Sandy. About tomorrow, my school's closed for some kind of health inspection. They never tell us any details. They just message us late the night before. It's probably nothing serious though. She replied with, "Lucky you," and then closed the bathroom door. I looked down at my phone. The title of the creepypasta I was listening to was something like, "I broke the fourth wall in my creepypasta story. I found a fifth wall behind it." That wall had a list of rules painted on it. I never let the names get in the way of a good story or even the amount of views, but I fell asleep 30 minutes into it. Soon after reaching the rare state of complete and total relaxation, I began to feel vibrations throughout my entire body, starting at my head and working its way to every limb. When I opened my eyes, the vibrating had stopped, and I found myself in a room with no windows, and only wall-to-wall bookshelves filled with dusty tomes in various languages. At the base of one wall, I saw a roaring hearth fire, a small coffee table, 2 comfortable armchairs by the fire, and a fur rug from some exotic, unidentifiable beast. I began walking towards the armchairs, noticing an open bottle filled with amber liquid, and 2 glasses. Upon reaching the armchairs, I discovered that both were empty. "Hello, Johnny boy," Colsifer whispered into my left ear. "God, don't do that!" I had been startled, but I knew I wasn't in any real danger. Given the present company, I elected to sit in the armchair on the right, the closest one to the fire. That's an interesting choice. Any reason why you chose the seat on the right? I thought about it before answering. It just felt like I was supposed to. Hey, by the way, where are we? I remembered falling asleep. Oh, that. You're not asleep. You entered a trance. Wait, do you mean to say that you weren't intentionally trying to visit me? Colsifer said with a bit of disappointment in her voice. Well, no. I mean, Sandy just got back from work and... Colsifer interrupted. You trance-walked your way into my pocket dimension, stark naked, and you want to talk about your girlfriend. The flames of the hearth grew larger and hotter, punctuating that fact. It was then that I noticed that every shadow in the room had vague outlines of faces, swirling slowly within them. Wow, hey, I had no clue that I was naked. I'm new to trances. She had an angry look on her face, which honestly did little to dampen its supernatural beauty. It's funny the things you notice when you should be worried about shadowy faces swirling in the dark. I didn't realize I was just staring at her until the fire slowly dimmed back to its normal intensity. When she noticed is exactly when she laughed at me. I don't mind your nudity, but a girl could get the wrong idea, John. What with the nighttime visit while your girl's sleeping? I imagined anyway. Let's just say the first thing I imagined after she said that was a fresh pair of clothes for myself. About what you said before, about my choice of seating. What's interesting about that? She floated about 1 apple's height off the ground and levitated to the armchair opposite mine. Just a matter of perspective. Were it that you are where the flame sits, that chair you're sitting in now would be on its left-hand side. Humans imagine their perspective to be the fulcrum upon which the universe is perceived. For example, in this, my humble pocket dimension, this flame is where I set the perception's base. I didn't have a clue what she was talking about. In layman's terms, what does that mean? Just have a look at your hand, John. It doesn't matter which one, really. Doing as she said, I looked at my right hand. Something did actually seem a little off. I examined my left hand and noticed my engagement ring was missing. No, it wasn't missing. My ring was on my right hand. That's odd, I mumbled, still examining my hands, moving closer to the fire's light. It gets better, Colsifer said with a hint of amusement in her voice. And that's when I noticed it, precisely what she had been talking about. The scars that I got on my left hand when I was 15, they were now on my right hand. This dimension's perspective is reversed. She clapped 3 times and told me, "Well done, and maybe we'll hang out here again sometime." I didn't have time to reply. The whole room grew blindingly bright, forcing me to shut my eyes, followed by warm tingling which shifted into a full body tingling. Without warning, I opened my eyes to find myself in my own bed, sunlight pouring through the window. "At least it feels like I slept," I remarked to nobody in particular, as the clock on the wall informed me that I had woken up at 7 a.m. That meant that Sandy had already gone to work. "I have to get up," I told the bed. It didn't seem to understand because there I was, head on pillow, still wrapped in my warm blanket. "Come on!" My alarm sounded at 7:01, breaking the spell all beds seem to have on people when they need to get up and face the world. I slapped my alarm and I rolled out of bed, threw on some shorts, and I headed for the kitchen to get some cereal. What I saw at the dining room table was disturbing. "Good morning, John," the thing said in a gravelly voice. It was seated at the table, cloven-hoofed feet and hairy legs crossed and propped up next to the fruit bowl. "Whoa, who are you?" I shouted as I grabbed the fruit knife and pointed it at the horned, demonic creature. "Why, you look like you've seen a goat." The goat-headed demon grinned crookedly. "Colsifer, I summon you." I didn't stand a chance against a demon at this point. I had to get my back up. 15 seconds went by awkwardly, but Colsifer was a no-show. "Have a seat, John." A chair pulled itself out and slid behind me. "I won't repeat myself, mortal. What else could I do?" I sat down. "What are you doing in my home? I didn't invite you in." The bearded caper demon leaned forward a bit and then said, "Firstly, wrong trope. Secondly, ouch, John, that hurt. Third and really most importantly, what are you gonna do about it, Johnny Bah Boy?" I bolted upright and lunged at the demon with my fruit knife. "Sit down," the demon shouted with a swift gesture of one of its black-clawed hands, and an unseen force slammed me back into my chair. "Do us both a favor and relax." I reached for a bag of chips. "Hey, let's make a deal. I'll teach you a secret if you give me 1 corn chip." The proposition caught me off guard, and I laughed. Sure, go ahead." The goatee-sporting demon opened the bag and carefully removed 1 chip and began munching on it. "A deal's a deal. Now let me teach you something. 2 lessons, actually. 1. Look at me. Anywhere in my body, it doesn't matter. And focus your energy on the spot just between your eyebrows." Humoring the demon, I did as it said, and soon felt a spot of warmth on my forehead. In a brief moment, the demon's body shimmered and then wavered. "You, come on, duh." "Yeah, well, if you saw it coming, congrats." Colsifer's sin-worthy form came into focus where the hairy demon once sat. "Such a valuable skill I've just taught you. You don't happen to have any apples lying around, do you? I would do some shady things for a good apple." Colsifer narrowed her eyes playfully. "If you wanted apples, you should have put them on the list. I'm gonna get you back for the prank, but first, it's that easy to see a demon. Just focus on that spot." Without missing a beat, she said, "I'm eating the rest of these chips, okay?" She waited a second for me to say okay, and without missing a beat after I gave the go-ahead, She took a couple more chips out and levitated them into her mouth. You have to be looking at the center mass of the hidden, disguised being for that skill to work. This method works for singular targets, and you can't just walk around with it switched on all the time. It paints you as a target. On stronger spells, you might only get a hint that the creature is there, but not what or who it is. Oh, and lesson number 2 of our most recent deal, as promised. You need to know the depth of the clusterfuck you're getting into with all this occult mess. Just remember, it's only a cult to you humans, but this life is every day for the fallen, demons, ethereals, and things so old and eldritch that even I don't dare mention them by name. I recognized that she was being serious, which helped me remember my position all the more. So you're saying like I'm the new kid on the block. I gotta watch my back, that it? Thanks. I tried for sincerity, but I was itching to skip the pleasantries and get to training. Not at all. You are the new rich baby on the block. And how easy it is to take your candy away. Get the point. You're lucky I'm in your corner. A bit of heavy ammunition in your camp. She said as she stuck out her chest a bit. Thanks. Really, but let's get started. And those arcane ingredients, how do we use them? She blinked out of sight and appeared at the fridge. Most of these ingredients are useless for now. That did it. All that running around for nothing. Please tell me you just didn't send me about on a fool's errand, Colcifer. I raised my voice at the fallen angel. My mistake. The lights flickered as she straightened up, and as she clenched her fist, the lights dimmed. I assure you, Colcifer said, with an eerily customer service-like voice, and then looked at me with amber fire in her eyes, betraying her otherwise a mask of a pleasant smile. Colcy. The light blinked off, and when it flickered back on, she was kneeling at her hands on my knees, feet with that same unnerving expression of partially concealed rage. Everything we gathered will be of use in time, she said in a low, seductive voice as she inched closer. Now, John, can you tell me why men make poorer spellcasters than women? She was now quite uncomfortably close by the standard of most taken men, her bare assets on display as she stood up, leaning over me without touching me. The answer is easy, Johnny boy. With a wink of an amber eye, her head exploded in fiery combustion of gore and bone, knocking me out of my chair. I scrambled to my feet, and before assessing the full extent of the damage, I saw Colcifer's headless corpse falling to the ground. My heart sank in time with that motion, and a split second before her body could slam lifelessly on the dining room floor, she appeared upright without a scratch. She put a hand on her chest, as I noticed the room was clean. No sign of what I had just witnessed anywhere. Oh, nah. No, I saw. That's sweet of you to feel sad at what you thought was my death. But what you saw, John, was lesson 3 and 4 for this morning. Focus. Because without focus, that could happen to you while you're trying to cast destruction on a target, if your mind wanders. Like it did wander as a gorgeous fallen angel put her goods right in front of you. Lesson 4. Don't yell at me without a good reason, too. Anyway, ready to move on to more structured lessons. I won't be getting any of those images out of my head anytime soon. Thanks for that. Moving on. What steps precisely before I can start casting spells and doing real magic? The steps are many, but the biggest step, you've got to survive a true life or death situation. A situation that puts you within a hair's breadth away from your mortal life being snuffed out. A chilling revelation, had your fear not been switched off. But we've covered that already. You survived. Both my eyebrows shot up. Say what? What do you mean already covered? And how long do we actually have before these old ones make their first move against Sandy I want to know how much time we've got. She motioned for me to follow her to the living room. I grabbed a can of pre-made coffee from the fridge, don't judge, and I walked to my living room only to see several objects floating upward into the air above the coffee table. What's going on? I asked Colsifer in vain. Shh, have a seat. It's starting soon. Her attention apparently on the knickknacks and other junk swirling slowly above her heads. I noticed her hands flexing and articulating strange, slow gestures as the shadows under her chair began to swirl as well. Those familiar faces made an appearance just inside of the cracks and crevices where the shadows were thickest. She stopped all movement before snapping once with one hand, sending all but 3 objects smoothly to their proper place. 3 objects, a figurine I had sculpted to look like me a couple of weeks back, a hobbyist model car, and a coffee mug from my favorite coffee shop, all rotating slowly, all an even distance apart. They stopped in place, their positions that of a wide triangle. I was surprised to see the figurine pantomime a big yawn and scratch its own belly before giving it a rub and looking longingly at the coffee mug in the distance. As the toy man appeared to be walking to the giant mug, the car started up as well. When the man was about halfway to the coffee mug, the car sped up and changed direction for the man's path. What is this, Colsifer? She snapped her fingers once more, and the object slowed down to a crawl just as the car was about to smash into the figurine of the man. This is the best part. Now be quiet and watch, Colsifer said with a look of concentration as she got up from her seat and walked up to the scene. She waited just a moment longer as the car was seconds away from destroying the figurine, but she stepped behind it and gently pulled the sculpted man backward, safely out of the way of the car. Without a blink, the car sped up and zoomed by, the little man shaking a sculpted fist at the model car. That car, that man, that was me, the day you came back into my life. I hadn't realized how close to death I was that day. Wait, Colsifer, did you have something to do with that car nearly killing me? She giggled and plopped back down on the couch. Geez, you're welcome, John. And it sounds like you're onto something there. Consider that it was necessary for you to become your first steps to saving your sweetheart Sandy. I could begin to see why she would keep something like orchestrating my near death a secret, and I guessed that it had to be done. But then again, how far has Colsifer been planning ahead without consulting me? As much as I am hesitant to say it, thanks, Colsifer. Now tell me please, what's the next step, and how long do I have to actually prepare? She waved the 3 objects back to their rightful places, and the lights went back to normal. Give or take a few weeks, I would say you have about 9 months, just under a year. That's an odd estimate. 9 months. A silence stretched out as the gears of my mind turned and sputtered for a bit. And do you think that's enough time? She smiled condescendingly and swept her arms out in a broad gesture, palms up. Let's not look at the odds so early on, agreed. Now fetch the grave dust and the blessed olive oil. We dispensed with the shenanigans and got down to preparing step 2 of my mystical awakening. I mixed 2 parts holy olive oil in with 2 parts grave dust from my family plot, the exact place I was fated to be buried someday. After mixing it thoroughly, I added crushed rosemary, sage, 3 drops of witch hazel, and a single drop of my own blood, and I mixed it well. Is that good enough? What next? In a deadpan tone, a serious expression on her face, Colsifer said, Strip down until you're completely naked. My heart sped up, but I did as she said. Rub this mixture on these 7 points on your body. Or what? Would you prefer that I apply them myself? That would take far too long, and you're in a hurry, right? I blushed and I quickly grabbed the bowl from her, trying to ignore her teasing. Okay, in this order. Rub the mixture on your palms, below the navel, above each knee, chest, throat, and forehead. I did as she said, and I felt electricity in the air, building up and filling the space around me. Skin tingling isn't the word. I felt it moving through me. Now, we could end the ritual by having you walk a complete 3 full clockwise circles. Or we could make good on that old soul of yours, housing something unique from your inhuman ancestor. A sliver of their unique soul has melded with yours, and that sliver gets passed on, and grows a little bit larger with each incarnation. Potentially, there's a price, but you'll be able to start casting more potent spells much, much sooner. Say the word, but decide quickly. An inhuman ancestor and a unique soul. Your guess is as good as mine. There would be time to ask her later. I knew my soul was old, she had told me as much before. But what ritual would I be agreeing to? That's one that can't wait. Colsifer, shouldn't you tell me what this ritual is about? What are the risks? No time. 3, 2, decide. 1. Screw it. Alright, do it, Colsifer. I accept your offer. Uh-oh. Was that a smile I saw on her lips? Before I could fully regret my choice, she opened her mouth and what came out will stay forever engraved in my mind. At a volume only achievable through using club speakers, a sound, no, a pure tone issued forth from her throat. She began the modified ritual, walking in a counterclockwise circle around me, that unearthly tone flowing forth and pressing against my skin. As she nearly completed the first circle, a second tone issued forth from her entire being, both tone discernible and sounding at the same time. It was as if she had 2 voices, the second voice pushing into my skin, pulling the electricity from the air within it, pervading my muscles and bones. She began to glow, leaving a faint, persistent light in her wake. Once again, having nearly completed the second circle, her eyes smoldered with amber flames, and I could see the shadow of something circling her head, and a shimmering mass of crimson sparks flowing smoothly from her back, as she let loose a third note. In these simultaneous sets of 3 continuous tones, completing a chord both familiar and entirely alien to me, beginning the third circle. What I felt next was barely within the realm of description, but I'll try to do it justice. Every shadow that was present in the room had faces, and now I could see their eyes. Such hatred in those eyes. But every surge of light sent forth from Colsifer's luminous form caused the shadows to shrink back and contort in disgust, or maybe rage. I felt my entire being pulled in all directions at once, as each tone dipped and raised in volume, but never ceasing for even a moment. I looked down to see my body glowing faintly as well, dimly and growing dimmer as the pulling sensation changed to compression. The ground shook, or maybe I was shaking. She neared the last few steps. The crimson sparks coalesced in the wings, and the shadowy form orbiting her head became a halo, which appeared to be broken into 3 pieces. All of this I saw very briefly, as the ritual reached its crescendo. Colsifer embraced me tightly, the room having returned to normal. She held me a moment as all sensations had settled to a low vibration that I could nearly hear and feel within my body and mind. We looked at each other for a tender moment. What look was she giving me? It looked like for one brief moment, joy. Colsifer, what's changed about me? I asked her in nearly a whisper. And where did your wings and halo go? Her expression changed to something akin to disappointment. I have my own reasons for disappointment, and as for your awakening, from your point of view and for what matters, the ritual was a success, she said as she pushed me from her arms. Hey, what was that for? I shouted as I stumbled back into a shelf, nearly breaking it, and catching the model car as it fell. You wouldn't understand, and I wouldn't expect you to. You came out of that ritual more human than I thought you would, And that's all the explanation you're getting from me. I felt furious. And what was this mess about being more human than she expected? I threw the toy car at her feet, and I felt something flow out of me as it burst into purple flames upon leaving my hand. What was that me? The flames fizzled out before they could burn the floor at Kulsifer's feet. How interesting. Her mood lifting a bit. She blinked out of sight and I heard her begin to whisper in my left ear. There's hope for you yet, John. Now, the net. Her voice trailed off. Only it wasn't just her voice. All sounds, the air conditioning, the distant sound of every present yet barely audible sound of the city, they all went silent. Before I could open my mouth to remark on this, the world went dark. Rather, my vision was swallowed by darkness. I closed my eyes and all I felt was the sensation of falling. I opened my eyes again, but saw nothing. I tried to open them wider, but only darkness was visible all around me. I fell for 5 or 6 minutes, expecting to either see, hear, or feel something other than just this void. I want this to stop. I just want to be on solid ground. And like something had hurt me, the falling sensation had ceased, and I felt a soft yet solid floor beneath me. I looked down and saw nothing but my own body, as naked as it had been during the ritual with Kulsifer. The only illuminated object anywhere was my own body, as if it emitted a soft light within its realm of void. Hello! I yelled into the void. It echoed once after some time. Kulsifer, are you there? Silence was my only answer aside from my faint echo. I walked a few steps and I didn't trip over anything, but I had a strong feeling that I wasn't alone, as if somebody or something was watching me, listening to my every word. I didn't get a bad vibe from it, just a sense of something being all around me other than dark void. I thought about how naked I felt, literally and figuratively, and mused as much out loud. Sure wish I had some clothes. Surprisingly, I saw the void warping around me and felt it swallow me up, flowing over me like a sentient ooze until it covered me entirely. Oh my god! I yelled as it covered my head, only to have it release me a moment later, falling off me like molten rubber and disappearing. When I looked around this time, I was surrounded by rows of clothes from various time periods, the newest of which looked like early 1200s nobles' clothing. I was now in some type of closet, but a quick glance up and down showed me that I was still in the void. I'm gonna take a moment to get my bearings and get back to you with an update. I hope that you hear from me again soon. Wish me luck.